The Trackside New Zealand Derby over 2,400 metres. The Avondale Guinea, Stephen, is normally the guide 2 weeks ago. How much can we use that as a guide for this year's running? Because how farcical they ran in that race.
Well, that's the point. The race shape, it was farcical. Look, I think it presented more questions than answers, which is a real shame. You come to Avondale Guinea / Cup Day wanting plenty of answers when heading towards a derby. It didn't give us that. You look at the numbers, they've gone out 24 lengths below open class to the 600, 13 to 31 lengths slower than the 4 previous editions of the race. So in terms of an overall speed rating, you almost want to bin that purely because of the race shape, which makes it tricky to assess when they're running over 2-4 on Saturday.
Okay, well, let's talk about the winner first of all. The Doctor of Love. He brings the Australian form line. He was good in the race. He was able to utilise his draw and get into a good spot. So he's a danger. A
massive danger. He has to be in the top 4 or 5. You'd think that the stable will have him peaking for the day. It was his first run. He had the contest with the travel, etc. He's drawn barrier 12. They'll try and find a neutral spot. He was just forward in midfield in the Avondale Guineas. But if he can find that neutral spot with a little bit of cover, he was stronger than most in the last 200 to 400 metres. So I've got no dramas 2-4 on pedigree.
Is there going to be any speed in this race? Because that was the problem with that race. So is there any runner here that can position up and put a bit more pressure into this race this time round over 24?
Well, you look at the overall race, and I'm struggling to find that. You've got the likely candidates of Amazing Fluke, Grey Area could inject some speed into the race.
Bourbon Proof obviously led them up slowly in the Avondale Guineas, didn't he?
He did, and he's drawn barrier 3 this time round. But if you're looking at it as a whole, I don't see a huge amount of speed. Will they run at a tempo close to the Avondale Guineas? Hopefully not, but I do think they'll run below even tempo to the 600.
So there's one horse out of the Avondale Guineas I want to talk about. There's probably 2, but first of all, Will He Do It? He was disappointing. He went around, $1.40, somewhere around that mark, and he disappointed. What do we do with his run?
A lot of people suggesting you bin it totally. I just wanted to see a little bit more in the last 200 metres, his closing splits. There was at least 2 or 3 horses that finished stronger than him. The fact that he didn't do too much work in running. He did pull a fraction, but I think that was just down to the tempo up front or the lack of it. I was going back historically, BP, and trying to find out horses that ran so far below their betting expectation in the final lead-up race towards a derby. And whatever way you want to look at it, he was disappointing in terms of his profile. He started $1.40, as you mentioned, in the Avondale Guineas. So he's got to make a big turnaround on that assessment. Crown Prosecutor, now you go back a few years ago, he started 101, I think he won at that price. Now he finished midfield at Otaki, but he was 18-20 to 1 that day, so arguably you could make a case that he didn't disappoint in the lead-up run. So that's the one thing he's got to overcome. Will he do it? There's just been that last start performance in terms of where he finished and the starting price that which was attached to him.
Yeah, I like Oceana Dream. It was a very good eye-catching run in the Avondale Guineas. Tuxedo brings different form lines out of the Waikato Guineas coming into this race. He comes in with good form, but a barrow draw that's really hard to work out. What's your selection for the race, Stephen?
I'll take a gamble on Tuxedo. I know it's drawn barrier 16, but what I like to see, or what I saw last start, that he was able to settle in the second half of the field. Prior to that, he was a horse that landed on speed. In the Waikato Guineas, you look at the Avondale Guineas and the fact that it was such a soft section up front and then they've sprinted home. The Waikato Guineas was totally opposite. It was a fast run, 2,000 metres at Te Rapa, and he finished over the top of them. And the overall speed rating was a little bit superior than what the Avondale Guineas was. So I'm keen to go with Tuxedo. Drawn 16, it will need a Peacher ride from Joe Doyle, but happy to play him.
Yep, I'm keen to go with Oceana Dream. The horse is eye-catching. It's drawn barrier number 1, and if you're looking for something for your multiples, maybe Kiwi Skyhawk to try and help things out at a big price. That's the Trackside New Zealand Derby.